So even on show day, the culture and the habit of constant review and improvement is always there. And see, it was, as the team coach last year, to watch, this isn't a group of ex-Air Force pilots here. And this isn't a group of, even in a lot of cases, professional pilots. This is guys who, learned to fly trikes like Eddie, as an example.
G'day everyone, and welcome to episode 129 of the Flight Training Australia podcast. My name's Trent Robinson and I'm your host. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Really fantastic episode today. Looking forward to talking to the guys from the Freedom Formation team. I won't say any more about it. You'll be able to listen in just a moment. Thank you to everyone who has put in some feedback this week, questions and things that you want to know about. I'm formulating a couple of episodes based on all that sort of stuff. So thank you again for doing that. And for those of you that have taken the time to leave a podcast review on Apple Podcasts or write a question on the Spotify iPhone app, thank you again. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, you can jump on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review and a written review as well. But also on Spotify, it's not on the computer, but on the on your iPhone or I assume Android as well. There's a, what did you think of this episode? Or sometimes I might even pose a slightly different question. Love to have your feedback there. Just note though that I can't answer those questions. I can only post them for you. So if you do have a specific question you want to ask, feel free to send that through to me. info@trentrobinsonaviation.com.au, or you can hit me up on any of the socials as well. All right. Well, without further ado, let's get into today's episode. And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cast your eyes to Airshow left as we welcome the largest formation aerobatic display team in the Southern Hemisphere, Australia's very own Freedom Formation. And to talk us through the display, we're joined in the commentary box by team coach Jeremy Miller, lead Trent Stewart, and team member Eddie Sieve. Gentlemen, welcome.
G'day, Trent.
G'day, Trent.
G'day, Trent.
All right, that was a big intro, all right? Big Airshow voice on there. That's my Airboss voice. Thanks, guys, for joining us. And should be a fantastic chat today. So, yeah, look, let's talk formation and air shows and all the exciting things that come with it. So, Jeremy, do you want to kick us off? For those that don't remember, I spoke to Jeremy a little while ago. Jeremy's from UPRT in Archerfield, and I interviewed him and Shane about all of that back then. But we sort of hinted about the Airshow coming up and talked about things, and now Airshow 1's been and gone. So firstly, how did it all go? And then we'll get into talking to the other guys about things.
Well, great to chat to you again, Trent. Look, the Pacific Airshow was something that I was approached about, or the Airshow organizer approached me about 12 months or so before the actual show. And one of the ideas that came to us was putting a team together. It actually came from Eddie, who's on the podcast as well this evening. We put a team together and it absolutely rocked. We had a great time. It was an awesome show, and absolutely loved it. So we're already working on our next display for this coming year. It was just awesome location, awesome people, just perfect weather. You couldn't ask for anything better.
It was one of those things, wasn't it, that you were probably one of the earlier booked pieces, but as with anything of air shows, it was so hard to lock in performers and people were just the logistics, as always, of getting cool stuff to Australia that's not already here.
Absolutely. And, the first time when you run a new show in a new location, there are logistical challenges with getting display performance. And myself being local, it was one of the first display acts they locked in.
Yeah, well, I think it's smart. They put on a good show, but make sure it is a good show. Don't try and get too big for your boots to start with. So they had a really good event. And as we know, there's another one this year. And I think it was like a 3-year sort of contract to start with, wasn't it? So another one next year as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I believe it's actually a 5-year contract.
Yeah, awesome. Even better. All right. Well, because I think I've overbooked myself this year, but next year I'll definitely make it.
Definitely worth it. Yeah.
All right. So Eddie, let's talk about your flying. So whereabouts did you start flying, and how long you've been flying? Do you want to just take us sort of through up until now?
Okay. I started flying in '95. I went to a show in Darling Harbour called Big Boys Toys and got talked into going for an introductory flight in a microlight of all things. And Anne-Marie, my wife and I, Anne-Marie, we took up the offer and thought this is pretty cool. I'd always been interested in aviation, but finances early on didn't allow, and so this thing sort of gave us an easy entry into flying. And we spent probably 4 or 5 years flying microlights. That's how I got to know one of the other guys in the team, Kevin White. He was instructing in microlights at the time. And so we pretty much go away every weekend and fly. And one of those, a few years in, and microlights are pretty limiting, due to back then they were doing 40 to 45 knots. So you're not going terribly far in a trike, if you want to go on a bit of a trip. And so I'd set up around the Newcastle area one day to go for a fly, and this aeroplane came in with two guys. It was tandem seating, never seen anything like it before. It was absolutely gorgeous. And they pulled up, opened the canopy. I had a chat to them and found out that it was an RV4, and also found out that you could actually build one. That was sort of my realisation that getting into aviation was a bit more accessible if you're willing to put in the work. I didn't quite jump on the bandwagon straight away. I ended up building a Hughes Lightwing Bipe. So there was a guy called Howard Hughes who lived up in Ballina. Sadly, he's passed away. So I built one of his biplanes, registered RAOs, did my conversion to 3-axis, and started flying that for a few years. Sadly, it was only a single seater, and Anne-Marie had gotten used to coming flying with me in the trikes. And eventually, after 3 years, she said, "Oh, I'm sick of just watching you go flying. Build something with 2 seats in it." So I built a Zenith XL low wing aircraft, also RAOs register. And we flew that around for about 4 or 5 years. And during that time, I'd been seeing lots of people having fun, doing aeros, etc., and thought, gee, I'd really like to get into aerobatics. And that's where I went back to the Vans website and thought, okay, I'll grab an RV7 and build one of those. And I got really lucky. At the time I was building, the dollar was above parity with the US, so the kit was relatively inexpensive compared to what they are now. 4.5 years of construction and about 2,000 hours, and I had my new aeroplane. And in between that, I needed to get tailwheel endorsed. I needed to get spinning, aerobatics done. So I got all of that sorted, and then started test flying my RV. Started during the flight test procedure, you have to do all the manoeuvres that you're going to certify the airplane for, and discovered that flying a Citabria and flying an RV were two completely different animals. So I thought, okay, I need to get some training in this aircraft. I lucked upon Peter Townsend from the Australian Aerobatic Academy, and asked him if he'd be able to get me up to speed in my RV. Interestingly, he'd never flown in one before, so he was dead keen. And so I spent probably 8 or 9 months just going through and getting my head around all of the manoeuvres that I'd done in the Citabria, and making sure I was safe to do them in the RV. And after that, it was out to the airport every weekend, as most of us do. Go out for a fly, go and do some aeros, come back. I drive for 3 hours to fly for an hour or an hour and a half, which is a bit insane. And one day, one of the other guys out at Wedderburn, which is where we're based, said to me, "I've just done a formation endorsement. It's the best fun I've ever had." That guy's name was Richard Talbot, and he had gone across to Curtis in Camden to do his endorsement with one of his mates. They both had RV7s, and so he talked it up so much that I got in touch with Mark Newton, who's a formation member, and he was keen. The only thing that slowed us down was Mark was doing his night rating at the time, so I had to wait for him to finish. In the interim, I started hassling Pete about getting a course done, and he eventually admitted that he couldn't actually deliver a course for us, but he knew someone who could, and that someone was Jeremy Miller. So Pete suggested at the time that doing it as a 2-ship training course was going to be rather expensive, because Jeremy, I think you were based in Broken Hill at the time. And so we had to fly Jeremy out from Broken Hill for 3 or 4 days. So I hunted around for a few more bodies and got Glenn Bridgeland and Mel Keynes involved. And so we had 4 people to share the cost, and pretty much the rest is history. We did our course with Jeremy and Pete. I'll be honest, I've never been so scared in all my life. But it's the best thing I've ever done. We're over 8 years in now. I've done formation aerobatics with Jeremy. I've gone on to do an instructor rating with Jeremy so I can teach formation. And it's just opened up a completely different side of flying. Going out and flying with your mates just leaves solo aviation for dead.
Yeah, it's incredibly social, isn't it? It's great.
Yep.
Like, as Jeremy knows, the guys at Janicotte every Friday, Arvo, it was a bit of a mixed bag that always went out in the afternoon after work, and then came back to the bar upstairs and talked all about it and everything else. And it's just such a great skill set. It's like scuba diving. You got to have a reason to go flying, don't you?
You do. You definitely do. And look, I'll be honest. I think the 4 of us ended up being the inspiration, I guess, for the rest of the team to get on board, because they saw how much fun we were having. The guys would come along, if there was a spare seat, they'd come along for a fly. And, they all started to get hooked. So, pretty soon we had, 11 other pilots based at Wedderburn and Bankstown who had gone on and done their formation.
Yeah, so should always be someone around to go for a fly with then, isn't it?
There's always someone around to go for a fly with.
Yeah, brilliant.
And it's rare these days that we go for a fly on our own. Every flight's pretty much a formation flight.
If you do go on your own. So who's it, Trent?
Eddie, I think you're supposed to say it's the best thing you've ever done, apart from getting married and having kids.
It's the best thing I've ever done, apart from getting married and having kids, of which I don't have any.
All right, we'll edit that out. All right, so that mystery voice in the background is Trent. So Trent, again, thanks for joining us, mate. And same sort of thing. Like, do you want to give us a bit of a history and background on you before we start talking about the team?
Yeah, well, thanks for having us, Trent. It's all your show's very interesting. So, I think I'm quite different to Eddie in my journey. I'm sort of your typical GA pilot type journey.
Yep.
Young kid who always wanted to fly, and was an air cadet and built model planes and all that kind of stuff as a kid, and raised money, worked at Safeway, and did my PPL back in the day. I went solo when I was sort of 16, got my licenses and all that sort of thing, and went into GA aviation. I remember when I first started, because I'm based in Melbourne, learned to fly up in Tamworth at the school up there. And when I came home, I thought I'll give myself a year in Melbourne to see if I can find a job down here. And after a year, I'm just going to bite the bullet. I had a Datsun 200B, put it on the train and head up to Darwin, as you're probably well familiar with.
Yeah, I think it's still parked out the back of the airport. I think I saw it the other day.
Well, well, as it turned out, I got about 7 or 8 months in, and I had a phone call from a local operator in Melbourne who said, "Are you interested to come?" And we don't have any spots for pilots, but we have a spot for someone to help in the hangar, a hangar rat position. So I started as a hangar rat, washing aeroplanes and dumping the toilets on the jets and all that sort of stuff. And I remember one of the companies that I sent my resume to every single ASC holder in the state, and very few returned my letters. One returned my resume marked up with red ink, so gave me some corrections on how I'd done my resume wrong. So tried to take that as objectively as I could. And I had a phone call from one other gentleman who said, "Have you got a formation endorsement?" I said, "Well, no, I haven't. I've just literally finished my CPL and my instrument rating." He said, "Well, if you've got a formation endorsement, I might have a job for you in 6 months." So I went to my dad and said, "Dad, can I borrow a few $1,000s? I need to go out to, Dick Gower and do a formation endorsement." Went and did my formation endorsement, and 6 months later, he gave me a ring and said, "Are you still interested in coming and doing some flying?" So at that point in time, I was the hangar rat. I think I had a Duchess endorsement maybe, and doing a little bit of flying around, some charters and whatnot out of Melbourne, and started in a formation skywriting team, would you believe? So we had 5 aeroplanes doing skywriting.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and everyone else in the group seemed to have thousands of hours and lots of experience. And here I was with my 250 hours in my logbook, pretending I knew what the hell I was doing, with 5 or 6 hours of formation time. And I remember at the start, the first sign we ever put up, we'd done lots and lots and lots of training for this, lots of training sorties. We used to be up at, 12, 13,000 feet on oxygen doing this sort of thing. And we finally got to put up a sign where a customer paid. We came back and landed, and he handed me $100 note. And I was just, that's it. I've made it. My career's, I'm king of the world.
Brilliant.
I can't believe some idiot has given me money to go flying. This is the best feeling in the planet.
And then you found out it was meant to be $1,000, but you spelt it wrong. So
yeah, well, I was back then. I was doing. I was working as a hangar rat. I was doing a little bit of charter flying, but it was all unpaid. And I was pretty much working at the charter company to get credit, hourly credit sort of thing against the endorsement. So, I'd work for 3 or 4 months of time and write it down in a little book and go to the boss and say, "How much is a Baron endorsement again?" "Oh, $1,200. "Oh, I've got enough credit for that. Can I do a Baron?" "Yep, righto, let's go." And off we'd go and jump in the Baron, and worked my way up through that company. It took about 6 years, and I think I ended up with about maybe 1,500 hours after 6 years, and flying chieftains and Titans and Citations and King Airs and all that sort of good stuff. So it was a good, really good fun in GA. I think I was very blessed to be able to do it in Melbourne. I think most people have to end up in Darwin or somewhere else.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, and then from there, I moved on into flying corporate jets, moved up to Sydney for a while and flew Learjets and Challengers and Globals. And I think I had I ended up moving back to Melbourne, and around about the 5,000 hour mark, I don't know, I was looking for something else in my career, something else to do. And I went and did a paragliding course, and that was the coolest thing I'd ever done. I thought, this is me, this is pretty good fun, but I thought it's a bit ridiculous. I've got a pilot's license. Shouldn't I go and use that and to have fun? Anyway, Jeremy had just started his school down at Lethbridge in Melbourne. I gave him a phone call and headed on out there. This was back in, I think, 2013, and did my aerobatics and tailwheel endorsement with Jeremy. And aerobatics is kind of a little bit addictive, as it turns out, which he didn't tell me at the start. So 6 months later, I was the owner in a I think, when was that? April 2013, I did my aeros and tailwheel. By September, me and 2 of the other students had bought a pit special, and we were banging around doing sportsman and intermediate competitions. And then from that, it ended up in a little one design, and we, off we went doing the aerobatic competitions. And I think it took me about 5 years. It was a long 5-year journey to really get to do the fun stuff. I think I started out, it was April 2013 with my endorsement, and July was my 1,500 foot with Jeremy, and a year later I did 1,000 foot, and a couple of years later I did a 500 foot. And then the real fun came in 2017 when I did my formation aerobatics endorsement, and that was great. That was like rubbing your tummy and patting your head while standing on a bowling ball. That was fantastic.
So always very confident building when you do your low-level aerobatics and below 1,000 feet, the examiner says, I'll just watch from the ground. And you go out by yourself. You go, hang on a minute, what's going on here?
So we were flying our one design, and we went up to, I think it was Tocumwal or somewhere like that, and we did our 500 foot endorsement. And obviously it's a single seat aeroplane, so it's done with the examiner on the ground. And we went and did the training. We had to plan a display, look at energy management and go and fly this display. And the object is to stay above 500 feet at all times. So we did that. Then at the end, we were way above 500 feet. And at the end, he said, I want you to come down the runway at 500, roll inverted, and just fly up the runway 500 feet for me. Oh, that sounds pretty fun. So we got the aeroplane upside down. There was three of us who did the endorsement at the same time. All three of us rolled inverted, and then there was a pretty significant climb away from the ground.
Safety first.
No, it's just we're scared of the ground.
That's what I mean. Safety first.
Exactly.
Fantastic. All right. So going from there, then obviously everyone's got their formation endorsements, and Eddie, just getting this team together and the sort of the idea, what sort of transpired with that to the point where you got Jeremy on board and found a bunch of people to decide, hey, good idea.
I was actually watching the news, 7 o'clock in the morning, and an ad for the Pacific Airshow came on, and I thought, shit, we need to be part of this. So, I knew Jeremy would be awake, so I just rang him and said, Jeremy, there's an ad for the Pacific Airshow. Could we be part of this? And I was initially thinking about just the four of us who were flying as the Stooges, and Jeremy had bigger plans and said, no, let's see if we can involve everyone. So he said he was off to a meeting at 10 o'clock, I think, with Code 4, and he was going to put that idea forward, and he left me with the task of seeing how many bodies I could get interested in. I think by the time he was finished, we had 13. That was in the space of a day.
Yeah,
so that was really cool.
Not all from the local area either. Like Jeremy's up in Brisbane, you're in New South Wales.
Well, Jeremy's in Brisbane, James is in Brisbane. The rest of the team was at Wedderburn and Bankstown. So, poor James was, I guess, left to, find people to train with, besides Jeremy, who's, busy. But the rest of us, once Jeremy put our display routine together and we had our first training camp, that gave us all the ammunition we needed to go away and religiously practice, at one, maybe 2 times a week. And the three guys I was flying with in acro, we're all pretty useless. So we practiced a shitload and it still didn't help.
No. And that's the most crucial part of it, isn't it, Jeremy? So how did you go about structuring that? And how many aircraft, how many is too many? And then what is this massive metal, aerial ballet sequence able to do without everyone on the outside falling out and all the things that we know we've got to talk about when we're doing formation aeros?
Yeah, well, great question, Trent. Putting something together like this doesn't just happen overnight, as you can imagine. And as Eddie said, he put a shout out to all the guys. We ended up actually with 12 pilots, including Eddie, who was interested. And we very quickly worked out that no one really had any experience leading that many people. So that was when I put my hand up and said, hey, guys, how about I lead the team for this year? So I led it in my Yak 55 and the guys, the rest of the guys flying RVs. And in terms of putting the team together and building up the team, we started with just the simple stuff. Okay, I had a look at everyone's experience. Okay, and I had a look at I had to think about where they would best fit into a larger formation. So one of the philosophies that I used was something that I had seen the Royal Air Force Red Arrows do. over in the UK, where whenever they have someone new coming into the team, they actually put them in the middle of the big formation where they have the most stability. Putting the new guys on the outside of the formation where they're looking through 3 or 4 aircraft into the middle of the formation actually makes it a lot harder for them. So I took the juniors, put them in the middle. I put the more experienced people on the outside. And we literally started, I think it was just before New Year's, the year before the Airshow. So this was 2022. And we put our first 11 ship together. We briefed it, we walked through it out of Wedderburn and flew for the first time as a large formation. And then we gradually built it up to doing 45-degree angle bank steep turns in formation. And then from there, we built up the display. And the display that I designed was once again designed around each person's strengths and weaknesses. So we had people like Eddie, who had been there or been doing formation for 7-8 years at that point, doing formation aerobatics. And we had other people like Gavin and Ollie and Don and Martin, who were all quite low time when it came to formation experience. So I designed the display around each of their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the best way to do it, and as you know, when you're out on the outer edges, it feels a bit safer unless you're on the bottom of the turn. But then every movement of every aeroplane, it just oscillates and gets worse and worse. And having that ability to follow, but then not necessarily follow the oscillation, to sort of start dampening it out, and definitely takes time and experience, doesn't it?
That's very true, and it's time and experience and practice, but it's also understanding how to do it properly. So one of the things that I teach or taught the guys quite early on was how to banana the formation. So what we mean by bananaing is the wingman that's closest to the lead, for example, so the number 2 person, would normally sit slightly lower than the normal position. And that would mean that because they're sitting a few feet lower, the wingman on the outside can actually still see lead. So by seeing leads aircraft and using that for stability, then we kind of start to get away from the whole tail of the dog thing happening where if you're on the outside, you just get flicked out. So it's little tricks like that I would teach the guys to make it all sort of come together.
Yeah. So Trent, for those that don't understand formation or get it, most people would think that you sort of put the least experienced person in the front to lead, because you think, well, all they've got to do is just fly along and then everyone follows. But literally just what we've been talking about, everything you do just gets mimicked and oscillated the further back and the more aircraft you've got attached to you. And we are essentially operating as one big aeroplane, eh? So do you want to just talk about the most challenging parts of leading a formation and how you sort of found yourself up the front?
Yeah, it's actually amazing leading such a massive formation. I mean, it's one thing to take a big Balbo formation where you're just doing a fly past of an airport, and you have to be switched on for 1 or 2 minutes. But we've got a group of 13 guys that we're going and doing at 300 feet above the ground, a 360-degree turn where everybody needs to stay in formation. We're moving this massive group of people around the sky where we need to roll in exactly the right timing to meet with everybody else in the right position. It's literally like flying a giant A380. That's how I feel it. It's an A380, but if you waggle the stick a little bit too fast, the wingtips fall off. And it was interesting for me that little things like the cadence of your radio calls make a very big difference to how the formation are flying. If I rush a call, left turn go. If I was to do left turn go, people up and down all over the formation, because they can't predict what I'm about to say or do. It's all about giving everybody the most stable platform and the most predictable platform. So, the person on the outside knows, because of my cadence, they literally start moving the stick and adding the power before my airplanes even started moving,
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, isn't it? Because when you've got an aircraft, so what are they? 1, 2, 3, about 4 aircraft out, aren't they, for the outer out of part of the formation. That's a big turn radius compared to the lead aircraft. The aircraft on the inside's got such a small, so everyone needs to start doing their power movements. Otherwise, it's just over before it's begun, isn't it?
And a lot of it comes from Jeremy's experience on the ground. He puts people in positions, like you said, who are experienced enough to be there, but also that they have the right aeroplane type. You don't put the lowest power aeroplane on the edge of the formation,
So how are you guys going with power matching? Everyone's in RV4s, or what sort of mix of aircraft we're doing? And now Jeremy's yak's not in the front, or is that's what Angela's flying now, is it? Or?
That's what I'm flying, yeah.
You're flying, yeah. So it's the yak's still the front.
The privilege to fly with the most number of cylinders.
Yep. That's it. So Trent's, as you said, he's flying my Yak 55 this year for the show. The other team members are flying RV6s, 6As, 7s, 7As, and we got an RV8 in the team as well. So a bit of a good mix of different aircraft or different RV designs. There's a good mix of constant speed unit propellers with fixed pitch propellers, and we've got, I think, our lowest powered guy's like 150 horsepower with a fixed pitch prop, and we've got another guy who's putting out like 210, 220 horsepower with a constant speed unit. So there's lots of considerations with the layout of the team and the design of this display to actually account for each member's abilities and performance, not just from a flying perspective, but also with their aircraft.
Yeah, wow. That's obviously worked well.
It's going good. Yeah, it's going good. The guys are going great. We had our first training camp for this year only about 5 weeks ago, and we had a whole new what called Balbo, which is the large 13 ship formation. So most people had actually moved positions to I like to move them around to give them challenges rather than just doing the same thing all the time. And the guys took to it like a duck to water. I mean, one of the things that has really made it quite easy to put this team together is the fact that all of the pilots who fly on the team have come up under the same training regime. They follow the same standard operating procedures. They all know what's expected of them. So, there's like, everyone knows what to do, because of the training, because they all follow the same standard operating procedures. If we took 13 pilots from all sorts of different backgrounds, it'd be a lot more challenging to make this happen. It'd still be doable, but it would take more time.
Yeah. So let's talk about these training camps and everyone's locations. So how is all this being funded? Because I'm guessing there's a bit of personal passion and investment here, because as we know, air shows aren't renowned for paying very well, if at all. So how are you guys coping with all that and keeping safety still as a priority versus the cost, Trent?
Yeah, well, safety is always number one. So we do not compromise on safety. That's why we have a team of people around us. Every training flight that we do, when we're at the training camps, we have a videographer who films it, which we go back and review afterwards. And we as a team, we help to put a bit of money back in his pocket to make it worth his while. The team's done a lot of fundraising to like last year to raise money. We raised enough money to pay for the 3 training camps. We've got flight suits, we've got uniforms, accommodation, and transport costs all covered up on the Gold Coast. And we still had a little bit of money left over to put towards training camps this year. So the guys are paying a little bit out of their own pocket, but we're working with sponsors to help promote aviation. Like the Sport Aircraft Association of Australia have been incredibly supportive of what we're trying to do, and we certainly wouldn't be able to do this without their support. So a big shout out to them. But we also have other sponsors that Eddie can probably better explain, who've just been there to support us along the way, and they can see how we're promoting aviation here in Australia. They can see how we're promoting what Australian pilots are capable of, and just promoting general aviation.
Yeah. So Eddie, do you want to talk about that, and how did you sort of canvass operators and get them on board?
Our first sponsor and I was pursuing sponsorship last year. I'm doing the same this year, but Angela Garvey's helping out as well. But our first sponsor was Rob Mangan from Skyfuel, and
That's a good one.
I remember I stepped out of work and I thought, okay, I'll give Rob a quick call. And as soon as I mentioned, it was literally, I think I'd spent 35 or 40 seconds on the phone describing what we were trying to do. And his response was, "How much do you want?" Which I hadn't considered. I thought, shit, okay, now you've got me with my pants down.
I thought there was going to be a bit more back and forth going on.
I expected a lot more backwards and forwards, but Rob just said, "How much do you want?" And so he ended up contributing 5,000 litres of fuel last year, which meant that we could actually do our training camps without the guys having to put hand in pocket while we were away. As Jeremy said, the Sport Aircraft Association came on board. We had Bevan Anderson from Avplan, who last year, it was a similar conversation. I rang him up and said, Bevan, this is what we're trying to do. And I think 7 minutes later, Bevan said, "Sure, what are you looking for?" And so I just described, what our current outstandings were. And he said, "Put me down for accommodation for a training camp." And for the number of bodies that we have, you're looking at somewhere around $4,000 or $4,500. Plus, he gave the entire team an Avplan subscription. He's done the same thing again this year and given us 20 Avplan subscriptions. And as Jeremy mentioned, we've got a few other people who, our first training camp, I think Jeremy invited Lorenzo and Dominic along to shoot photos just to help with promotion and also video to debrief. Lorenzo is a pilot, but he's basically giving freely of his own time for nothing. So we try and cover his accommodation costs and help out a little bit. And Glenn Bridgeland, one of the other guys who's flying acro, he was training one of Jeremy's students, Matilda Mendham, I think is how you pronounce her last name. And Matilda, when she found out what we were doing, basically said, "Oh, can I come along?" And she's been with us since our first training camp. She turns up, she refuels all the aeroplanes, re-smokes all the aeroplanes, and pretty much does anything that we need her to do. She's a uni student who's got a PPL, and she's coming along just to be part of something. And then, we also managed to get Angela Stevenson to come on board as a commentator. Her and her partner Tony, they turned up to do an article on us for Australian Flying just to help promote the team, and they never left. So we're collecting pilots as we go. I think the team is currently 20 people. So if you've got the 13 formation pilots, Jeremy is now the team ground coach. And Lorenzo's friend who's come along, and she is looking after Unicom for us. So we've got 4 or 5 young pilots who are giving freely of their time, and we're doing the best we can to look after them. And then we got really, really lucky. There's a guy I met at Wedderburn who just mentioned how much he was admiring what we were doing in terms of formation flying. He worked for Segway. And I just made a throwaway comment at him, Segway wouldn't want to sponsor the team. And, they came on board last year. Sadly, this year, they haven't. So, we're trying to pursue other sponsors. And then the company that what amazed me the most was Pumpkinhead Air Sports. Diane, they're a really small business. They can't afford to give much, but they've kicked in last year and they kicked in again this year. So Diane bought our smoke trolley, our smoke pump, and refueling nozzle for us. So it's just, there's this amazing group of people within aviation who've just, reached into their own pockets to help us out.
Yeah,
And then to answer your question about team costs, I think when we're practicing quite hard, I think the guys are going through somewhere between 700 to $1,000 worth of fuel a month. So the personal cost is quite high.
Yeah. No, it is. Like, I commend you all because it is a commitment, and I'm sure everyone wants to do it, and they go, "Oh wow, this has got more than what I was expecting." But it's fantastic that everyone's coming on board and supporting you guys. So, Trent, do you want to take us to Airshow Day and just talk to everyone? What is it like participating in an airshow, and maybe just talking about getting everyone ready, and then the departure, the various holding stages before you actually come in, and how you all deal with the pressure of doing it with so many people watching on and cameras and everything else.
It's funny. I've done a lot of flying overseas in China, where there's hundreds of thousands of people a day coming to watch you fly. And, we always make jokes about it. These people yelling out and clapping, and some people getting you to sign their phones and handing their babies over and all this kind of stuff. Do they know that bloke over there's a plumber? Do they really know that? So the pressure can be there if you want it to be, but in most cases, we've done so much flying together. There's so much trust amongst the team. There's so much training that we've done. The nerves exist. The moment you get together and you start walking around the display in the hangar, you climb in, you get the wind-up signal from lead, and you start the engine. As soon as the engine starts, it all just goes away. And now you're back doing the same thing that you've done 53,000 times before. The crowd goes out of your mind, and really all you're doing is looking at the guy next to you and staying in bloody position. That's all you're doing for 12, 13, 14, 15 minutes. And after you land, then your hands start shaking and the nerves start happening. You think, Jesus Christ, that was fantastic. Can we go again? When can we go again? Now? Can we go again?
Yeah. No, look, it is. It's from I've done what was it, the formation, the biggest one at the Aero Club, I think it was like 28 aircraft or something, but it certainly wasn't doing any formation or anything else. But I know just, from doing air displays at Perth and stuff, it's always very exciting. But like you say, you've just got a job to do and you get on with it, because you haven't got time to be thinking about all these other things, and you just got to be a cohesive team because there is so much trust involved, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, if you were to come out to Temora and have a look at what our training camps are like, they're far from a group of people sitting around with their feet up drinking coffee. We are bang, bang, flight. We're getting as much into that time as we possibly can. And, a shout out to Lorenzo and Matilda as an example. We'll climb out of the aeroplanes and, we'll do our pre-brief, and a brief might last an hour and a half prior to the flight. We'll then go and walk through the aeroplane. That's another maybe 15, 20 minutes. Everyone will strap in. We'll go do the practice flight, 13, 14 minutes, Jeremy, something like that. And the debrief could take an hour and a half or 2 hours at the end. So the amount of going through the video and discussing and reviewing what we did, coming up with the improvements, is a factor of 20 to 1 for actual flying time in the air,
And as Trent said as well, when you're putting this sort of show together, spending the time to actually walk through it on the ground is just critically important, because that's where the guys actually learn the show. So that when they step into the aircraft, they're just replicating what they've just been walking through and what they've just been visualizing. So to answer your original question, by the time they get out in front of the crowd, they're doing nothing different from what they've done many, many times before. It's just another practice, really. It's just more people watching.
Yeah, and that's the part of it, isn't it? And then it just stays exactly as briefed. It's not a time to, start showboating or do something different or break from the brief. It's just as planned.
Yeah. I mean, put it this way, Trent. Last year I was the team coach, and the boys put on a great display. They were asked by the organisers to come down and sign autographs, so they all came down in their flight suits.
I saw that. Yeah, it's great.
A couple of hundred people signing autographs and all this sort of thing. They were invited back into the VIP tent to meet the VIPs. The beers were handed around, right? Now, it'd be very, very easy just to enjoy your day. But it wasn't even Jeremy that suggested it. It was 3 or 4 of the team members says, boys, are we going to go back and watch the video? We need to review this because there's another flight tomorrow. So half an hour later, we found ourselves back in the hotel with the biggest screen you've ever seen, watching a review of the video. Jeremy saying, I think you're a bit out of position, number 4. No, I wasn't. Oh, the video shows I was. Okay, great. How are we going to fix that? So even on show day, the culture and the habit of constant review and improvement is always there. And see, it was, as the team coach last year, to watch, this isn't a group of ex-Air Force pilots here, and this isn't a group of, even in a lot of cases, professional pilots. This is guys who, learned to fly trikes like Eddie, as an example. And they've come to this with such an amazing attitude towards improvement, with no ego, happy to take everybody's advice and improve. And every single flight last year and this year is an improvement.
Yeah, no, well done. I think it's just fantastic, and what you do is great. I was really excited when Jeremy first told me about it all and what was happening and planned, and makes me just miss it terribly. So I'm hoping I'm coming over in a couple of months. So I'm hoping to come and have a bit of fun then. But look, guys, just wish you all the very best for this upcoming air show. And when is that, Eddie? When's the next Pacific Air Show on? Where can people come and see you?
Starts 16th, 17th, 18th of August this year. So we're 90 days or less than 90 days away, I think.
Yeah.
And I noticed that on Signal, so we use Signal to communicate with the team, the Pacific Air Show has just promoted our team. So all of us are there, team bios, etc., are all up. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
to know that we got invited back. I think we can all be really proud of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the biggest vote of confidence, isn't it? That you get invited back. And the guys anyone listening, they can check out more. So you've got the freedomformation.com.au website, and obviously Instagram and Facebook. They can follow you all and see what it is that we've actually been talking about as well, and have a look.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guys, great video work.
Yeah, thank you. When you've got a team of 13 people, there's bound to be 1 or 2 of the younger generation who can do something with the video. So it's been great.
Well, we know, starting with the Nanchangs and the old handy cams bolted to the dash with changing tapes out all the time.
The good old days. Yeah, I remember that.
So much simpler. Guys, is there anything else you'd like to add before we sort of wrap things up?
Look, for anyone going to or thinking of going to the Pacific Air Show, we've got a hell of a show designed for this year. We've been working on some really, really cool new stuff, some new maneuvers, some stuff that's just you haven't seen here in Australia before. So we're really looking forward to displaying again on the Gold Coast and any other air shows around Australia that will have us.
Put it this way, Trent. At the wrap party last year, there might have been 1 or 2 bourbons under our belts. The lead of the roulettes came up to me and said, "Excuse me, are you the coach of the Freedom team?" I go, "Yeah. One of the guys involved." He goes, "That was awesome. I've never seen anything like that. How the Christ did you guys manage to do that?" So when the lead of the roulette says that to you, you're like, "Don't know how we did it. It's pretty good, huh?"
Yeah. And if anyone is keen to learn how to do this, a little plug for myself and my business, UPRT Australia. I'm actually in New Zealand at the moment, doing some training over here with a potential new team. More than happy to travel around the country and help people to get into this sort of stuff in a safe manner.
Yeah, it might be a bit of a battle across the ditch, eh?
Absolutely.
And I think that's like you're saying, Trent. I think what's so fantastic about it is, from a GA kind of homeowner style aircraft, like, the RA series of airplanes, it's just so common, but this is not their standard use, is it? But they're such a capable airplane. Jeremy's done some stuff at Serpentine. I've flown in them at Janicock before. I don't think it's any up here in Darwin at the moment. But just aerobatic platform as well. They're not your typical go-to, but they're just clearly proving themselves as a really great aircraft, aren't they, Eddie?
Yeah, the RVs are an all-round bang for buck aeroplane. They really are. And I mean, the other thing, if you think about it, is you've got 12 aeroplanes there that were built by the guys flying them. That's pretty spectacular in itself.
Definitely.
And
Definitely, if you're willing to put it upside down and do all this with it, then that's the ultimate vote in your confidence.
Mr. Van has a good product.
There'd be many of your listeners that have stood at air shows and watching what's going on and thinking, wow, that's pretty amazing, but I could never do that. And it's totally not true. All you need is the right attitude, some time, a good instructor and a good mentor. Go flying. Simple as that. Have an attitude of improvement with every single flight that you do. How can you not get better?
Yeah, well,
and the great thing as well is that you don't need to have an RV to do this. You don't need to spend $1 million on the latest extra or pit special or anything. If you and a bunch of your mates who have Piper Cherokees and Warriors or Cessnas, there's lots of stuff you can do that will be very entertaining at an air show with just your typical general aviation aircraft.
100%, yeah. And look, I'm getting excited because I've come over to fly with you guys again soon. Well, you, Jeremy, but I've got about 8 people up here wanting formation endorsements, and they've approached me about it lately. So I'm like very excited, getting back into it, and been doing a bit of formation flying, but not so much the teaching side of things. So it's going to be really good. Last question I've got: have we got a Freedom Formation IMAX Blue Angels movie night planned?
We do.
You would have to, surely.
Trent has inspired all of us. Although it looks like it's going to be tomorrow night, Trent. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it'll be probably tomorrow night now, yeah.
Is it going to be a FaceTime from your respective IMAX theatres across Australia? It's going to be hard to get to each other.
The guys are getting excited. They're suggesting sitting in formation. I suggested we all wear our team uniforms. So it's going to be an interesting night.
Get into it. Geek it up, I say.
Martin said, are we all going to sit in formation? I go, you're such a wanker. Of course we'll.
Sit down, go.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. Look, thank you so much for giving up your time. Jeremy over in New Zealand, whilst you're busy, mate. I hope you're having fun over there. Like I said, freedomformation.com.au. You can jump on the website, follow there. The links to Facebook and Instagram are also there. And more importantly, get over to the Pacific Air Show and make sure you support the team. It's, give them a wave as they go by. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Trent.
Thanks, Trent.
Thanks, Trent.
Thank you very much to the guys for joining me today, and a really great chat. I can absolutely tell you now that formation flying is just so good for the skills, for the camaraderie, something to do with your fellow aviators, and has opened up so many opportunities for me in my career with flying just formation, but also air displays, aerial photography, and air shows, that sort of thing. It is just the best. Flying the Nanchangs, doing combat formation aerobatics, just a whole nother level again. Doing barrel rolls around other aircraft and things, skills, techniques, discipline, all the sort of stuff that you really want to hone skills, and not to mention learning how to land an aeroplane precisely where you want to, because there's another one next to you. So you learn to become very, very skilled and disciplined in those areas, and it is definitely something to look for and take the opportunity if it presents. It is 100% something that's not just for showboating and gallivanting around, though, and it does require, like I said, those disciplines and the respect for what we get to do. Traditionally, from military-based training, it's something in the civilian world we get to do, and is something to be respected and appreciated. So if you want to learn more about it, definitely talk to Jeremy, or otherwise any other local operator in your area that does offer formation training, and get some mates together in similar performance aircraft. Again, they'll take you through all these sort of things. You can't really have a mixed match of aeroplanes that's too wild. Otherwise, it makes it really, really difficult to see each other, performance characteristics, engine response, all that sort of stuff. You'll soon see that it makes things a bit of a handful. That's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for your company, and I very much look forward to your company next week. Until then, blue skies, and remember the golden rule: aviate, navigate, communicate. Cheers, everyone.